Brothers and sisters, distinguished listeners, and all who hear these words across lands and oceans, I speak today not from a place of bitterness, but from a place of truth, a truth that has too often been ignored, distorted, or dismissed. For generations, an entire continent has been spoken for, analyzed, categorized, and diminished by those who believe their voices carry greater weight than ours. For too long, Africa has been treated as the background to another story, as the shadow in which someone else's light must shine. Today, I say with conviction that this era of silence, pity, and manipulation is over. What you hear now is not one voice, but the echo of a billion souls, carried through history by resilience, carved into memory by survival, and projected forward by determination. That cannot be broken. For centuries, our lands have been invaded, our resources extracted, our people enslaved, our dignity stripped in the name of civilization, development, and partnership. But what those who came with chains and guns did not understand is that dignity cannot be destroyed by force. It can be buried, it can be mocked, it can be suppressed, but it cannot be erased. It remains within us, like embers beneath ash, waiting for the right moment to blaze again. That moment is now. The world must learn that Africa does not exist to soothe guilt, to absorb experiments, or to bow under the pressure of external control. Africa exists because it has always existed, with its wisdom, its civilizations, its own stories, its vision of life and dignity. Let us speak honestly about what has been said of us. They have called us corrupt, as though corruption were not born in the same foreign capitals that shipped weapons into our wars and siphoned wealth out of our minds. They have called us chaotic, as though the chaos of slavery and colonization did not come from the very systems they imposed on us. They have called us beggars, as though the centuries of plunder that filled their treasuries were gifts rather than theft. We reject these labels not because we seek validation, but because truth requires that lies be unmasked. To those who see us only as dependent, I say, look again. To those who believe Africa survives only on your charity, I say, look deeper. For beneath your headlines and beyond your caricatures lies a continent that has endured every wound and still stands. Unbroken dot, we are not defined by pity. Pity is a weapon used to place one person above another, to disguise control as compassion, to justify domination in a language of generosity. We are not defined by pity because pity requires someone to kneel while another pretends to lift. Them, we do not kneel. We stand. We have always stood. When chains bound our wrists, our spirit remained upright. When guns burned our villages, our culture continued to sing. When policies drained our economies, our mothers and fathers worked the soil, carried the water, taught the children, and held communities together against odds that should have destroyed. U.S., if you want to understand Africa, do not look only at its wounds. Look at its scars and see how those scars are not marks of defeat, but of survival, endurance, and unmatched strength. We must also speak about manipulation. The world has often spoken to Africa not with honesty, but with strategies, not with respect, but with agendas. Policies come dressed as partnerships, but are written as chains. Aid is given with conditions that ensure dependency rather than empowerment. Narratives are shaped to highlight weakness, never resilience, to showcase instability, never creativity, to broadcast poverty, never potential. These are not accidents. They are instruments of control. But let me say clearly, Africa is not a laboratory for failed experiments in governance or ideology. Africa is not the canvas upon which foreign powers paint their dreams of influence. Africa is not the perpetual child that others must discipline or correct. We are a people, fully human, fully capable, fully sovereign, and fully prepared to shape our destiny. To those who believe their power can silence us, know this: truth does not bend to power. Power may silence a voice, but it cannot silence conviction. Power may erase names, but it cannot erase memory. Power may manipulate stories, but it cannot kill truth. Time and again, truth has risen from the ashes of lies, carried not by armies or governments, but by ordinary people who refuse to forget. Today, our truth is that Africa will no longer be defined by the terms others impose. We will speak for ourselves. We will define ourselves. We will write our future. Consider the generations that have come before us. Our ancestors faced ships that arrived on our coasts, chains that bound our wrists, whips that scarred our backs. They faced colonizers who declared our lands their own, who mapped borders without our consent. Who planted flags and declared victory over people they did not understand? They face puppet regimes, coups engineered from foreign capitals, and assassinations carried out in the name of order and stability. They face famine worsened by exploitative policies, debt traps disguised as development loans, wars fueled by external weapons and interests, and yet, through it all, they endured. They endured because they carried within them a faith in the future, a vision of freedom, a conviction that no matter how dark the night, the morning would come. That morning is breaking now. We are here because they endured, and now it is our responsibility to ensure that their sacrifice was not in vain. Let us speak not only of pain, but of power. Africa is vast. Its resources are immense. Its culture is rich. Its people resilient. Its youth creative and determined. Too often, these strengths are hidden beneath a narrative of weakness. But anyone who has walked through the bustling markets of Lagos or seen the innovation of Nairobi's tech hubs or listened to the voices of young artists, musicians, and writers across the continent knows that a different story is being written. A story of self-determination, of creativity, of ambition. The world must recognize that Africa is not simply a place that receives history. It is a place that makes history every single day. Our role in the global order is not to follow, but to lead alongside others as equals. There are those who will resist this shift. They will unleash economic warfare, manipulating markets, freezing aid, restricting trade, all to create desperation that forces leaders into submission. They will attempt to discredit voices that speak with courage, manufacturing lies to smear reputations, fabricating scandals to destroy credibility. They will weaponize hunger and poverty, hoping that suffering people will demand silence from those who speak truth. But here is what they do not understand. When people know the price of their suffering, when they see the machinery of manipulation, they do not surrender. They endure with greater determination. They support their leaders, not because conditions are easy, but because truth has finally been spoken. People can endure hardship if they know it is the price of dignity. What they cannot endure is silence, lies, and the constant insult of being told they are incapable of speaking for themselves. We must understand the stakes clearly. This is not only about one nation, one leader, or one speech. This is about a fundamental shift in how the world views Africa, and more importantly, how Africa views itself. For too long, we have allowed others to define our identity, to shape the narrative of who we are. For too long, our history has been written by those who colonized us, our present described by those who exploit us, our future imagined by those who fear our rise. That ends here. We will define ourselves. We will tell our own story. We will raise our voices until the world can no longer pretend not to hear. Our dignity is not negotiable. It is not a privilege granted by powerful nations. It is not something that can be given or taken away. It is inherent, unbreakable, unyielding. Dignity is what remains when everything else is stripped away. It is the light that shines when material wealth is stolen, when institutions are destabilized, when opportunities are denied. It is the flame that kept us alive through centuries of exploitation, the flame that guided us through decades of struggle, the flame that now burns brighter than ever. And with that dignity, we will build, we will create, we will rise down. My brothers and sisters, understand this. We do not seek revenge. We do not seek to dominate or humiliate others as we have been humiliated. We do not seek to reverse the roles of oppressor and oppressed. What we seek is simple: respect, equality, partnership. We want a world where Africa is not a charity case, not a playground for experiments, not a pawn in global power games, but a respected equal in the family of nations. We want a world where the dignity of one continent is the dignity of all. For when one people is diminished, all humanity is diminished. And when one people rises, all humanity rises. We must look honestly at the system that has kept Africa in chains. Long after the formal flags of colonial powers were lowered, the chains are no longer made of iron, but of policy, of economics, of information. They are chains forged in boardrooms, and polished in think tanks, delivered not with whips but with contracts, not with violence but with conditions hidden in fine print. They tell us we are free, but then they set the price of our freedom so high that it becomes another form of captivity. They tell us we are sovereign, but then they manipulate our currencies, dictate our trade, and decide which leaders may be celebrated and which must be undermined. This is not freedom. This is not a partnership. This is control dressed in the language of diplomacy. And yet, something has begun to change. Across our continent, people are awakening to the patterns of this manipulation. They are beginning to see that the shortages in markets are not accidents of nature, but results of deliberate obstruction. They are beginning to recognize that the images of hunger splashed across global headlines are not simply stories of tragedy, but tools used to justify interference. They are beginning to understand that the constant repetition of corruption and chaos as Africa's identity is not journalism, but propaganda designed to sustain dependency. And once people understand, once the curtain is pulled back and the machinery of deception is exposed, the power of manipulation begins to crumble. We must also speak of the role of narratives. Those who control the story control perception, and those who control perception control reality. For decades, the story of Africa has been written in a way that benefits others. Our successes are minimized, our failures magnified. Our leaders are caricatured as either despots or puppets. Rarely as visionaries. Our cultures are reduced to stereotypes, our economies to statistics of poverty, our people to anonymous masses in need of saving. But the reality is different. The reality is that Africa has produced thinkers, builders, artists, innovators, and leaders who stand shoulder to shoulder with the best the world has to offer. The reality is that Africa's story is not one of endless crisis, but of constant resilience. The reality is that we are not waiting for saviors, we are building our future. It is time to reclaim the narrative. It is time to tell our own stories with our voices. The world must hear of the children who rise before dawn to study by candlelight and still dream of becoming doctors, engineers, and leaders. The world must hear of the farmers who coax life from dry soil, feeding not only their villages, but entire nations. The world must hear of the women who carry families on their shoulders, who sustain economies with their labor, who nurture communities with their strength. The world must hear of the young innovators who create new technologies, who design solutions for local challenges that inspire global admiration. This is the Africa I know, the Africa that refuses to die, the Africa that stands now to say, enough, let us speak also of unity. One of the greatest strategies of control has been division. We were divided by artificial borders drawn on maps without our consent. We were divided by languages that were forced upon us, separating us even from our neighbors. We were divided by narratives that emphasized our tribal identities over our shared humanity. We were divided into weak states that could be manipulated, rather than strong regions that could stand together. And yet, even through these divisions, our unity has never truly died. It has lived in our music, which travels across borders. It has lived in our stories, which echo in different tongues but carry the same lessons. It has lived in our struggles, which may occur in different nations but share the same root causes. That unity is awakening again, and when Africa stands, not as 50 separate states, but as one voice, one dignity, one vision. No power on earth can silence us, but unity is not automatic. It requires courage. It requires sacrifice. It requires leaders who will put the continent above their comfort, who will refuse to be bought by promises of foreign approval or personal wealth. It requires citizens who will demand accountability not only from outsiders, but from their governments, who will insist that dignity begins at home. It requires solidarity across borders, so that when one nation is punished for speaking truth, others will not stand by in silence, but will raise their voices in support. Unity is not an abstract dream. It is the most powerful weapon we possess against those who thrive on our division. Consider what unity could mean. Imagine trade that flows freely across African borders, not dictated by tariffs designed in foreign capitals, but by agreements rooted in our interests. Imagine a shared infrastructure that connects our nations, not through extractive pipelines carrying resources outward, but through networks that link our people to each other. Imagine education systems that teach not only foreign histories, but our own, instilling pride in our children for the civilizations that came before them and preparing them to build the future that lies ahead. Imagine healthcare systems strengthened not by charity, but by collaboration, research, and investment within the continent. Imagine governance rooted not in borrowed models that collapse at the first storm, but in systems that reflect our realities, our values, our aspiration. This is not fantasy. It is possible, but it requires that we first believe in our worth, and then act upon that belief with unity and resolve. There are those who will say this is impossible. They will say Africa is too divided, too poor, too unstable to achieve such transformation, but history tells us otherwise. History tells us that every great change was once declared impossible. Colonies couldn't become nations. Oppressed peoples couldn't win independence. Walls couldn't fall. For empires to collapse, for voices once silenced to rise again. And yet, all these impossibilities became reality because people chose to believe in them. Today, they tell us Africa can't stand with dignity and unity. Tomorrow, we will prove them wrong. Let us also speak of responsibility. Dignity is not only a demand we place on others, it is a duty we place upon ourselves. If we are to reject corruption, we must do so not only in words, but in action. Holding our leaders accountable, refusing to accept the theft of resources meant for the people. If we are to reject chaos, we must build institutions that are strong, transparent, and rooted in justice. If we are to reject dependency, we must invest in our capacities, from agriculture to industry to technology, creating economies that sustain themselves rather than leaning endlessly on outside aid. Dignity requires discipline. Dignity requires self-respect. Dignity requires that we build not only speeches, but systems that reflect the values we proclaim. We cannot ask the world to respect us if we do not respect ourselves. We cannot ask for equality while tolerating inequality within our societies. We cannot demand that others see us as partners if we do not partner with each other. The struggle for dignity must begin in our homes, in our schools, in our streets, in our governments. It must be carried by every citizen, not just by leaders. For leaders may rise and fall, but a people who have embraced their dignity cannot be defeated. To those outside Africa who listen today, let me say this: we do not reject partnership. We reject domination. We do not reject cooperation. We reject manipulation. We do not reject friendship. We reject pity disguised as generosity. If you come to Africa with respect, with honesty, with the willingness to build together as equals, you will find open hands and open hearts. But if you come with arrogance, with hidden agendas, with the belief that Africa must remain in your shadow, then understand this clearly: those days are over. We will not kneel to be pitied. We will not bow to being controlled. We will stand, and we will speak, and the world will listen. This is not a call to isolation. This is a call to balance. Africa does not wish to cut itself off from the world. We are part of humanity, and we share in its struggles and its hopes. But we insist that our participation in the global order must be on the basis of equality, not subordination. We insist that our voice must be heard not as an echo of another's agenda, but as a voice in its own right. We insist that our resources must benefit our people first, not fill the coffers of distant corporations. We insist that our dignity must be acknowledged as non-negotiable. These are not demands born of arrogance. They are the basic requirements of justice. Let us be clear: when Africa rises, the world rises. When Africa prospers, the world prospers. When Africa speaks with dignity, it strengthens the dignity of all humanity. The challenges we face: climate change, economic inequality, global insecurity cannot be solved by silencing one part of humanity while elevating another. They require cooperation, and cooperation requires equality. The world cannot afford an Africa kept in chains, whether visible or invisible. The world needs an Africa that is strong, creative, united, and free. And that is the Africa we are determined to build. So today, I say to all who listen, prepare for a new era. Prepare for an Africa that will no longer apologize for its existence, that will no longer accept narratives of shame, that will no longer beg for a place at the table, but will bring its chair and sit with pride. Prepare for an Africa that will teach as much as it learns, that will offer as much as it receives, that will shape the future as much as any other continent. Prepare for an Africa that refuses silence, that rejects manipulation, that demands respect. This is not a dream. This is not a threat. This is a reality already unfolding. Brothers and sisters, when we look at the long journey of our continent, we see not only wounds but wisdom, not only scars but survival, not only suffering but strength. We see civilizations that thrived when others were still learning to build. We see knowledge written in stone, passed through generations, carried in songs and stories, preserved in languages that refuse to die. We see kingdoms that governed with order, trade routes that connected continents, and traditions that honor the balance between people and nature. This is our inheritance. It has been obscured, it has been denied, but it cannot be erased, and it is time we embrace it fully, not as nostalgia, but as a foundation for the future. For too long, we have been told that our history begins with colonization, as though we were nothing before we were invaded. For too long, we have been told that our progress depends on the approval of others, as though we are children waiting for permission to grow. For too long, we have been told that our cultures are obstacles to development, as though the wisdom of our ancestors must be discarded for us to succeed. These are lies that served others, but diminished us. The truth is different. The truth is that our past is rich with lessons for governance, for the economy, for resilience. The truth is that our future cannot be built on borrowed blueprints that do not fit our reality. The truth is that dignity requires us to reclaim not only our resources, but our memory. And so we must ask, what kind of future do we wish to create? Not just what we reject, but what we affirm. We reject manipulation, yes. We reject exploitation, yes. But beyond rejection, we must declare vision. We must say what we stand for, not only what we stand against. We must paint a picture of tomorrow, so vivid that our children will see it and know it is theirs to claim. That future is not one of endless dependence, but of self-reliance. That future is not one of division, but of unity. That future is not one of silence, but of voice. That future is not one of shame, but of pride. That future is Africa, dignified and unyielding. In this vision, education will be the cornerstone. For too long, education has been shaped to serve foreign interests, producing clerks for colonial administrations rather than creators of our destiny. It is time to build systems that prepare our children to solve the challenges of our land, that teach them both the sciences of the modern world and the wisdom of their heritage. Education must not only transmit knowledge, but also cultivate confidence. It must not only prepare individuals for jobs, but also prepare citizens for responsibility. An educated Africa is an Africa that cannot be deceived, cannot be manipulated, cannot be silenced. In this vision, health will be a priority. Too often, our people die not because cures do not exist, but because access does not exist. Too often, foreign aid arrives not as empowerment, but as dependency, keeping us reliant instead of resilient. We must build healthcare systems that stand strong on our soil, staffed by professionals trained not only abroad, but at home, supported by research that addresses our realities, supplied by industries that we control. The health of our people is not a luxury, it is the bedrock of our dignity. In this vision, industry will flourish. We can no longer accept the model where raw materials leave our shores to return as finished goods sold back to us at 10 times the price. That is not trade, that is theft disguised as commerce. We must invest in processing, in manufacturing, in technology, so that value is added here. Jobs are created here, wealth circulates here. Our minerals, our oil, our agriculture, they must serve our people first. Let the world trade with us, yes, but let it be fair trade, on terms we define. In this vision, governance will be transformed. Corruption is not dignity. Mismanagement is not sovereignty. Exploitation by our leaders is no different than exploitation by foreigners. If we are to demand respect from the world, we must build systems that respect our citizens. Justice must be real, not a slogan. Accountability must be constant, not selective. Power must be service, not privilege. Leaders must understand that they are custodians, not owners, of the people's trust. Let us raise a generation of leaders who fear nothing except betraying their people, who desire nothing except their nation's progress, who seek nothing except the honor of serving with integrity. In this vision, unity will be reality. Borders may remain, but they will not divide hearts. Languages may differ, but they will not silence dialogue. Identities may be diverse, but they will not weaken solidarity. Unity does not mean uniformity, it means cooperation. It means that when one nation faces injustice, others rally in support. It means that when one region prospers, it shares with others. It means that we stop competing against ourselves. While the world reaps the benefits of our disunity, united, Africa will be more than a market, more than a resource pool, more than a battlefield of foreign interests. United, Africa will be a force that shapes the future of humanity, but visions require action. Dreams without deeds are illusions. It is not enough to proclaim dignity. We must practice it daily. It is not enough to speak of sovereignty. We must guard it fiercely. It is not enough to imagine unity. We must build it step by step. Each citizen, each leader, each nation must play a part. The farmer who refuses to give up, the teacher who inspires despite hardship, the activist who speaks despite risk, the leader who chooses honesty despite temptation. All of these are builders of dignity, and when millions act together, no force can undo them. To the youth of Africa, I speak directly. You are not the leaders of tomorrow. You are the leaders of today. The future is not waiting for you. It is being shaped by you right now. Refuse to accept the narratives handed to you. Refuse to believe that your worth is defined by borders you did not draw. Refuse to internalize the pity that others offer as though it were generosity. Stand tall, innovate, organize, and demand your place not as followers but as leaders. The strength of Africa will not be inherited. It will be built by your hands. To the women of Africa, I speak with reverence. You have carried this continent even when the world looked away. You have kept families alive, sustained economies with your labor, and preserved culture with your wisdom. Too often, your contributions have been unacknowledged, your rights denied, your potential overlooked. This must end. Africa cannot rise while half its people are held back. Dignity for Africa means dignity for its women. Empower them, respect them, support them, and the continent will rise faster and stronger than any power can imagine. To the leaders of Africa, I speak with urgency. History will judge you not by the titles you hold, but by the futures you create. Do not sell your nations for short-term gain. Do not betray your people for foreign approval. Do not confuse power with purpose. Lead with vision, lead with courage, lead with humility. Understand that leadership is not about being served, but about serving. And know that the eyes of your children and their children will look back on your choices. Do not let them see cowardice. Do not let them see betrayal. Let them see dignity. To the world, I speak with clarity. Africa is not your problem to solve, nor your victim to pity, nor your field to exploit. Africa is your partner, your equal, your ally in the human journey. We bring resources, yes, but more than that, we bring creativity, resilience, and wisdom. We bring youth and energy, culture and history, ideas and innovations. Do not underestimate U.S. Do not misrepresent us. Do not silence us. Work with us as equals, or be prepared to face a future where Africa will advance with or without your support. Let us remember always, dignity is not granted. It is claimed. Freedom is not given. It is taken. Respect is not requested. It is earned through action and demanded with strength. We are at a turning point. The world is shifting, and in this shift lies opportunity. If we hesitate, we will remain in the shadows. If we act, we will step into the light. So let this be our declaration. Africa will no longer be defined by pity. Africa will no longer be trapped by manipulation. Africa will no longer be silenced by narratives that serve others. Africa will speak, and the world will hear. Africa will stand, and the world will see. Africa will rise, and the world will change. We do not rise for revenge. We rise for justice. We do not rise to dominate. We rise to participate fully. We do not rise to silence others. We rise so that no one may silence us. Our dignity is not against others. It is for ourselves and humanity. And so, in this hour, let us lift our heads. Let us strengthen our resolve. Let us embrace our past, claim our present, and build our future. Let us show the world that Africa is not a question mark, but an exclamation of hope. Let us declare, with voices unshaken and hearts unafraid, we are Africa. We are dignified. We are sovereign. We are unbreakable. And to every child born today in the villages, towns, and cities of our continent, we pledge this. You will inherit not a legacy of shame, but a foundation of pride. You will inherit not the silence of submission, but the courage of resistance. You will inherit not the fragments of division, but the strength of unity. You will inherit an Africa that stands tall, and you will know that dignity is your birthright. This is our promise. This is our struggle. This is our victory in the making. Let the world bear witness. Africa is awake. Africa is rising. Africa will never again bow.